Uh,
Hey everybody, welcome in. Let's see if I can make myself. Rich, can you make me big for me? Thank you.
sure can. Give me just a second here. Let's see. That
There we
should do
go.
it.
Awesome.
All
Thank you. I
right.
appreciate it very, very much. Hey, everybody. I hope you are having a wonderful Monday. This is a great way to start out the week, right? I'm really excited. Now, I first want to apologize. I sound terrible. I am under the weather, but I'm not going to let it stop me. We are still going to have a wonderful class today. And this is a very versatile project that we're going to do. So, what we're actually creating is a purse chain. Purse charms and purse chains are really popular right now. However, this can be altered because I know that's not everybody's cup of tea, and that's totally fine. What I'm hoping that you will gain from this today is the technique to create the knot. You can take this exact same project and turn it into a necklace. You can make it even shorter and turn it into a bracelet. It would be great for an ankle bracelet for the upcoming summertime. So hopefully you will gain something from this. Now, I'm going to show you what this looks like on a purse. This is a little bit of a small version here. Not the biggest purse ever to do this with. I do think that it looks better with a bigger purse, but just to show you, this is kind of how this works. A lot of purses will have like the loops for the straps, and this just kind of clips right onto that. So if you're curious as to how this hangs, this is what this is going to look like. We're probably going to do an abbreviated version of this today because it's obviously takes a little bit of time, but I want to show you how to get it started, and I definitely want to show you how to finish it off. I don't want to leave anybody with any questions. Now, if you do have questions, though, don't hesitate to ask. All right, I'm going to go ahead and get you turned around, and we are going to get started. All right, for our materials for today's class, we are going to be using some of the repeat cord from Beadalon. I love this stuff. It is super strong to be made from 100% recycled plastic bottles. It always blows my mind that what was once a bottle that we drink out of has now become this really cool cord that we can do all kinds of things with. So if you are into macrame or you are into knotting of any kind, this is a really cool cord, and you get to know that you're using recycled materials, which I think is really cool. I'm going to be using some of this. I'm using just this kind of brown color. It does come in a couple of other colors. This one is called Sand. I'm going to be using that for my cording, and I'm going to be using the tying station. Now, for those of you who are unfamiliar with the tying station, I'm going to kind of walk you through this. So the tying station allows you to attach your cording or whatever it is that you're creating on both ends so that you can have your hands free. So for us, we're going to attach our clasp and the beginnings up here on one end, and down here on the other end, we will have the length. So we can work our way from the top to the bottom and get our fingers underneath here to do the knotting. At the top and at the bottom, you have two acrylic plates with a wing nut and a washer. If you will take the wing nut off and the washer off, you can slide the entire plate off. Or depending on what it is that you're doing, a lot of times when I'm attaching at the bottom, I just loosen it up enough so that I can slide my cord underneath without having to take it all the way off. But for today's project, we're actually going to take this off. All right, there's a question that says, is there an alternative cord to use? Yes, you can use any kind of cord that you want to for this project. That's what's really cool about this. Not only can you make this project into whatever you want to, but you can literally create this with whatever you want to. So if you wanted to use hemp or cotton cording or something like that, you could even do this with a thin leather that's like I would say 1.5 millimeter or smaller. You definitely could do this with that. It would take a lot, but I mean, it would look really cool. So yeah, feel free to use whatever kind of cord that you want to use, whatever you're comfortable with. Okay, so excuse me. We're also going to be using these little lobster clasps. These are bigger than your standard lobster clasp because we want to be able to attach this to our purse. Now, if you wanted to turn this into a necklace or a bracelet, you obviously want to use something a little bit smaller, unless you just like that. I think they're pretty cool. They swivel, so it doesn't matter which direction they are going. And speaking of, I'm actually going to take this one that was on this purse off so we can take a look at it. So one of the things that I'm going to show you how to do is to make this seamless. So a lot of times when you're doing macrame and you start out with your knots, I think a lot of people get hung up on, well, what do I do with my ends? For this, you're going to melt some of your ends off, but we're actually knotting over the top of our ends. So this makes this quite seamless all the way from one end to the other. So I'm going to show you how to do that here in just a second, but just so that you can see how this is attached, you don't need anything extra like a jump ring. All right, then for beads, in the materials list, I have listed these really cool Czech glass flowers in the brown. I thought they were really cool because they're nice neutral, but it is St. Patrick's Day, you guys. So for today, we're going to use the exact same beads, but in green. I just thought it would be a nice little way to change things up, a little pop of color. Now, if you don't want to use beads, you can actually use charms in place of the beads. So we'll talk about that when we get to that step, but just so that you know, I am going to be using a different color for our flowers today. All right, so, excuse me, you're going to need 2 pieces of your repeat cord. The first piece that you need needs to be about 20 inches long, and then your second piece needs to be 130 inches long. I know that sounds like a lot, but we are going to be knotting about 13 inches. So with 13 inches of knotting, that takes quite a bit of cord. Also, we start in the middle of that cord, so it's really not 130 inches. It's that divided into 2. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with our core. Our core is the 20-inch piece. We're going to take one of our lobster clasps. We're going to thread the end of our 20-inch piece through that, and we're just going to fold that over. So we're going to fold it over and make a section that is about 2 inches long. Okay. And then we're going to take this, whoops, and just holding on to those ends because they're not attached yet. I'm going to hook this over the top of the peg on the tying station here. And you can put your acrylic plate over the top of that if you want to. You don't necessarily need it because I think it'll stay, but if you want the extra security, you can go ahead and put that acrylic plate over the top of it. Now, I'm going to use a clip here. I don't have a clip listed in the materials list. You can literally use anything. I have one of these like little alligator clips that I'm going to use. Sometimes I just use like a chip clip. It just, anything that you have on hand. If you don't have a clip, use some painter's tape. But where I have folded this cord over, I'm just going to clip it to hold it in place until I have started knotting, and then I can take the clip away. For the other side of my cord down here on the bottom, I'm going to secure that to the tying station, and I'm not going to take the plate completely off, but I am going to loosen it enough so that I can slide that cord underneath, and then I'm going to tighten that back down. Okay, so now you can see I have my hands free to do all of the knotting, and that's what makes this tying station so convenient. Okay, so now we are going to take our piece that is 130 inches long. I know that sounds like a lot. We're going to take this piece and we're going to find the middle, which mine is kind of in a mess here, but we're going to find the middle. So I'm going to take it underneath where I have folded my cord over, and then I'm just going to bring my 2 ends together. If you don't have a tying station, you can use a clipboard. You can use anything to attach this to your work surface. So painter's tape, that's always kind of my go-to because it doesn't leave residue on anything. So you could put your painter's tape on the bottom and or on the top here to tape it down to your work surface. And then of course the bottom, you could use another piece if you wanted to, a safety pin, and then maybe safety pin it to your beading mat. So there's a lot of alternatives, but I do love the tying station. I use it quite often. So if you don't have a tying station, definitely check them out, because they're very handy, not just for macrame, but for all kinds of other things where you need to have your hands free. Okay, so I have placed the middle of the cord underneath my core. Okay, to get started with this, the first knot is always the hardest to see. So I'm going to do the first knot, but understand that you are probably going to get a better view of this knot after I have secured the cord to the core. So the first knot, you can listen to the steps, but my hands are probably going to be in the way. You're going to see this knot plenty of times, so don't worry. What we're going to do is we're going to create an S shape. It's very similar to an S shape, I will say. It's not exactly an S, but we're going to create what looks like an S, starting with our left-handed cord. We're going to cross this over the core. So what I'm doing is I'm folding it over. Okay, folding it over, and then I'm kind of taking it and turning it back around. So you can see the S shape here, right? And then I'm going to, now remember, first one's always the hardest. Then I'm going to take my right-handed cord and I'm going to cross over the top of that. And then you see the loop here on the bottom of our S. I'm going to take my cord and pull it up through that S. I'm actually going to use my pliers to grab that cord, pull it up through that loop. And then I'm going to pull, and that's going to create my knot. Now, as I said, that's not the best view of this knot. Trust me, you're going to see it a bunch more times. So don't you worry if you didn't get it that time, okay? I'm going to lower you down. This always happens on the left to create the S, and the right, you are always going to cross over. And what you end up with is an X with your cord, okay? So again, I'm going to take my left-handed cord, and I am creating an S shape over the top of that, right? So you see the S shape that is over the top of the core. We're going to take our right cord. I'm going to put my fingers in here to hold on to this. We're going to take our right cord. We're going to cross over that diagonally. And then we're going to bring that cord back up through the S shape, the bottom of our S shape on the right. And then you're going to pull. And when you pull, try to pull as evenly as you can, and it will create that X shape. Now, this is one of those knots where the tension is really kind of hard to get going in the beginning. And you can see, I have some, even in the sample, you can see, you don't really start to see the X until you've done this a few times. So if you're not seeing it after the first 2 or 3 knots, that's okay. Keep going. Trust the process. But you can see how I have some discrepancies in the tension here. You can see how it's like it's all nice and neat here, and then it kind of gets a little wonky. It just comes with practice. Practice is going to help you keep the tension in this knot nice and consistent. You can see once I get to the middle of the piece, I have more of that consistent tension, so that everything looks very uniform. But here in the beginning, it's a little tricky to get used to it. So just trust it and practice. You'll see it's going to get a lot easier as you go. All right, so same steps as before. We're creating an S shape with the left. And really, I'm just kind of like letting that happen because the cord kind of naturally wants to make that weird shape anyway. So I'm just kind of laying that over the top of the core, and then taking my right-handed cord and I'm crossing over that diagonally. So I'm here and I'm going to this position. Now I'm going to take that right-handed cord and I'm going to go around the back and up through the bottom of the S shape over here on the right. And then I'm going to pull all the way up. Here in the beginning, of course, we have lots and lots of cord to work with. It's a little tricky. But then I'm going to pull, and I'm going to pull my knot into the thread. Now, what we're doing here is we're covering up this entire folded over piece here. So I can take this away for now. I didn't need that. I don't need that for the entire piece, just until we get all of this covered up. All right, so again, I'm gonna make my S shape with my left cord. Okay. There's the S, kind of hard to see. Taking my right cord, crossing over that diagonally, and then bringing the cord up through the bottom of that S on the right side and pull. Okay. And then we're going to go again. Maybe put the clip back on here. Just kind of keeps the end out of the way. So I'm going to go over this folded over piece maybe 2 more times, and then I'm actually going to trim off what's left. All right, there's my S shape crossing over with the right-handed cord, and then going up through. And pull. You may have to wiggle a little bit to get it even as you pull your knot. But now you can see the X is starting to kind of take shape. All right. Right, so same thing. Creating that S with our left-handed cord. Okay, and then I'm just kind of holding it in place with my thumb. Right-handed cord crosses over that diagonally from the top on the right to the bottom on the left. And then you're going up through the S shape on the bottom on the right. And pull. Okay. All right, now I'm going to take the clip off. You can see I've got just a little bit left of my folded over section. I can keep going to cover that up. I'm actually going to trim mine off, because as long as you've got about 1 inch, you should be nice and secure. So I'm going to trim, and then I'm just going to proceed with my knots, and this is secure. I know that's not going to come undone. Okay. And if you need to like melt the end, you can. Just be really careful, really, really careful. All right. So now we're just going over our center cord. This makes things a little bit easier. Okay. So S shape, right hand cord crosses over, goes behind and up through, and pull. And if you can cover up that cut end, it's definitely helpful. All right. And we're just going to keep going. We're going to do this until we get about 12 inches of knotting. So there's our S, crossing over, behind, and up through. Cord keeps getting stuck. Up through. All right. And then pull. You do kind of have to wiggle it a little. Okay. S shape, crossing over, behind, up through, and pull. Okay. It might make it easier at this point to make it really big if you're more comfortable with a really big S. Oops, sorry. When we were up here, we were working on the other side of that clip in just a small area. It's kind of hard to make these S's really big. But now you've got plenty of room to work. So if it's easier for you to make those S's nice and big so that you can really see your knot, it definitely helps with teaching, that's for sure. All right, so you can see real big S here, crossing over and then going behind that up through. And you can see what that knot looks like as you pull. And you just pull that right into place. Okay. And you do need to wiggle it a little bit. Trying to get it all lined up nice and neat. You've got your S, cross over, go behind and up through, and then pull. Right. There's our S shape. Crossing over, goes behind and up through, and pull. All right, now you can see it's gonna take us a while. We're not gonna be doing the entire 12 inches here. We're not. We're gonna do, let's do maybe 5, okay? Well, maybe let's get down to about the 4.5 inch, and then I'll show you how to finish this off, and then we'll add the dangles, because you definitely don't want to sit here and watch me do this over and over and over again. Maybe therapeutic, but I don't know. I'm willing to bet it's probably not, considering how congested I am. So we're going to do a couple inches of this, and then I'll show you how to finish off the end of this, and then we'll work on some dangles. All right, so we're going to pull. All right, S shape, crossing over, going behind and up through. And you'll notice I kind of take my fingers and pull that cord up. If I'm not using my pliers to do it, which there's absolutely nothing wrong with using the pliers to do it. But if I'm not using the pliers, I'll actually take my index finger, my thumb, and I go down through that loop to grab the cord. I'll show you one more time. So there's the S shape, right? Crossing over, and then I'm kind of pulling it behind, and then I'm taking my index finger, I can hold on to it here, and my thumb, and I'm going down through that loop to pinch that cord and bring it up through. So whatever works for you. If you need to pinch it, great. If you need to use your pliers, that's okay too. Okay. S shape, crossing over, behind, up through. Oops, and pull. S shape, crossing over, behind, and up through. And you can see the X's. S shape, crossing over, behind, and up through. Your S shape, crossing over, behind, and up through. All right. So you can see here's a good close-up of what this knot is going to look like. And the more you practice, the more that tension is going to be nice and even. So that's going to keep your spacing nice and neat. Okay, so we're getting pretty close to the 4-inch mark here. I'll do a few more. It doesn't naturally turn. It does kind of want to twist just a little bit, but honestly, the twisting that kind of happens is because of my tension. I have a tendency to kind of pull harder on one side than the other. So you can see how it wants to kind of twist on me, but it shouldn't. It should be nice and flat. You do have to be careful though. If you're heavy-handed on one side, it will kind of turn on, you know, on you as you're going, but it shouldn't. If it does, it's because you're pulling harder on one side than you are on the other. And for me, a lot of times it just takes kind of getting into the rhythm, and then, you know, that kind of tension just kind of comes with the rhythm that you get into. But I am definitely kind of guiding this knot with my fingers as well. This is definitely not one of those knots where you just do it and pull and it just magically goes into place. Like, you really do have to kind of coax this knot into the shape that you want it to be. Even though the technique is the same over and over and over again, sometimes it just acts a little funny, and I don't know if it's the cord or if it's a tension issue or what it is, but you do kind of have to help this knot along with your fingers. You can see I'm always kind of just like pushing upwards and really kind of flattening things out. So you gotta stay on top of this one. You can't just mindlessly get into it. Now, the rhythm helps, but even when I get into the rhythm of this one, I'm still really paying attention to each knot to make sure that I'm pulling consistently so that I don't have any big loops on one side or the other. All right, there's my S crossing over, is behind and up through. And pull. S shape, crossing over, is behind and up through. All right, so we have made our way down here. We're about at 4.5 inches. So I'm going to show you how to finish this off. I know we've not gone very far, but 12 inches is a long way to go from where we are, right? And I've already got a nice sample here, so you guys know what the 12 inches is going to look like finished. However, I want to show you how to make it seamless on this end, just like you did on this end. So we're basically going to do the exact same thing that we did on this end. So I'm actually going to take the tying station, I'm going to turn it over, turn it around. So now I have the bottom on the top. And if you'll remember your tying station, the bottom half you can slide. So that's going to be really helpful here. So I'm going to take this off. And since we're not doing the entire thing, I'm going to trim some of this off. All right, so this is my core, right? This is what we had been knotting on. I'm going to take my other lobster clasp and I'm going to thread that on. And then same thing, I'm just going to fold this in half, attach that. And I'm going to give myself, I don't know, about an inch, inch and a half. It's back down on top. Okay, so now I'm going to continue with my knotting. However, hold on. Get some better tension here. I need to kind of secure this in place. So I'm going to use my clip again. And again, just use whatever you have, painter's tape. I'm using these little alligator clips that I have on my desk. Anything will work. fold that over and just kind of clip it. A chip clip, I know that sounds silly, but I have these chip clips on my desk. I use them for everything. If you have like those folder clips, you know, the ones that fold over, you know, they're triangle shaped, I use those too. So anything that you've got that will work to hold that. Yes, binder clips, they're perfect. All right, turning this back over the correct direction. Okay, and I'm just going to continue to knot. I'm just going to knot over the top of this. Now we're back into a very small section again, and it might seem kind of awkward because you've got this cord coming out, but we'll fix all of that. So same steps as before, just working in a smaller area. So using your pliers might be helpful when grabbing the cord, but you're just going to knot over. Just keep doing what you were doing. And I know it looks like a mess at the moment, but there's our little S shape. I know it's in a tight little spot, but it's still an S shape. Okay. Oops. Definitely a little trickier. Good old pliers will help for sure. And I could stop there. I'm gonna try to squeeze in one more knot if I can. It's a pretty small little space, but all right. So now, and you can see, got all of our little knots over the top of this. We're going to take the clip off. All right, now I'm going to take this off of the tying station. Yeah, the loop can be longer if you want it to be. It's up to you. You don't want to make it too long though, because it will look kind of funny. Just be sure that you're making it consistent on both ends. So if you've got a longer knot, excuse my hand, I'm just attaching, I know you're not really looking at anything other than the back of my wrist, but just be consistent. So if you make it a larger loop on one side, just make sure that it's the same on the other side, just so that it matches. But all right, so moving our tying station out of the way, now we are going to melt our ends. And here we have 3 ends to melt, okay? So we are going to trim our knotting ends as close as you can get them. Leave a little bit behind. All right, now you can use a thread burner here or a lighter. I just use a lighter. It's just easier for me. I just get the flame close. You don't set it on fire, right? You just get it close so that it heats it up and it starts to melt. And then you're just going to tap that with your finger. You're going to do the same thing on the other one. Just want to get it close enough to melt it, just making it hot, not setting it on fire, right? It's like roasting a marshmallow, unless you like your marshmallows on fire. All right, and then you're going to do the same thing here. So where this cord is coming out, we're going to trim. And then we're going to do the same thing. And I'm kind of folding everything over so I can like really get in there. If you've got a thread burner, you can get in a lot more tight, right? And then just tap that in and you barely see it. Once the piece is finished and you've got it hanging on something or you're wearing it or whatever it is that you've decided to do with it, you're not going to notice any of that. And you know that it's nice and secure because you've ultimately kind of created your own glue out of your cord, right? You've essentially just glued that into place. You've melted it onto itself, so it's not going to come undone. So you have a nice seamless end on this side, right? And then you have a seamless end on this side with the melting. Now, if you wanted to, you'd actually do the melting on what is the back, and then you wouldn't even see that little melted spot at all, right? But you would create, we've done like very, very small version of this, but you ultimately, if you want to make the purse chain out of this, you're going to do 12 inches of the knotting, right? So when you have your 12 inches or whatever, you can decide. If you've got a smaller purse, you may not need 12 inches. If you've got a larger purse, you might need more. But I take my two ends together and fold that in half and find the middle of my cord. And then I mark the middle of that cord with a jump ring or just a pin, stick a pin in it for our middle dangle. And I've already created several dangles here, but we're going to do two together. And obviously the piece that we made is not going to be long enough for all of those dangles, but we will put at least one on here just to show you how to attach your dangles. Okay. All right. So the dangles are head pins and your beads. So our largest bead here, I'm going to take that and I'm going to thread it onto a head pin. And then I'm going to thread a Czech fire polish onto the top. Now, fortunately, all these beads came together, right? The brown strand, it was the flowers and the fire polish. The green strand is exactly the same way. So you don't have to buy an extra strand of fire polish. The fire polish beads were in between each one. And then you're just going to do a wrapped loop or a simple loop. I'm going to take my wire, grabbing it right where it is exiting the bead, bending that over the top of my pliers. And then I'm going to come in with my round nose pliers, up and over, rotate, take the wire over to the other side to close up my loop, and then I'm going to wire wrap in that space in between there. And I'll do this again so you can see a second one, right? So I've got my wire wrap. I'm going to come in with my cutter, trim off that little piece of wire that's sticking out. I'm really thankful that I have made it through this without coughing my head off. You might hear me being very stuffy. At least I have not been coughing because I was previously. So thanks for hanging out with me and my stuffiness. I appreciate it. All right, so I'm going to do one more. So we'll do this together. So I'm going to take my head pin. I'm threading my bead onto my head pin. And then I'm going to thread a fire polish on the top. And then we're going to do a wrapped loop. So chain nose pliers, bending the wire over the top of the pliers. Coming in with my round nose pliers, grabbing that wire, taking the wire up and over the top barrel of the pliers. And then I'm going to rotate the pliers in my hand so that I can take the wire over to the other side to close my loop. And then I'm going to wire wrap in between there. So my pliers to help do the wire wrapping. All right. And then I'm going to use my cutter tool to trim off that excess. And if you need to tuck in your end, you can see that little end is sticking out. You can just squeeze it with your pliers. Okay. All right. So you're going to make yourself a bunch of little dangles. You can use charms. You can use other beads, whatever you want to use. Okay. And then to attach these, it's pretty easy because you can see on the outside edge of your knot is just a little like half moon shape, right? A little arch. Very easy to take a jump ring and you're going to open that jump ring up, and then you can very gently slide it in to one of those little spots. So see, I just slid that right in there. I didn't have to wiggle it much or anything. It was really easy to just slide that right in. And then before you close the jump ring, you can attach your little flower dangle and then close that back. And then you've got a little dangle to hang from it. Same thing with a charm, right? You're just going to slide it into, the cord is nice and soft, so it's super easy to do to add your jump rings to this, which is also why this would make a really cool necklace or a bracelet. If you wanted to make this into an ankle bracelet and hang charms from it, super easy to do, because adding the jump rings is an afterthought, right? You don't have to worry about, like, as you're knotting, adding the jump rings in and all of that. No. Your cord is soft. Your knot is, it's a tight knot, but it's not so tight that you can't wiggle a nice little jump ring in there or whatever you wanted to add. You could wire wrap to it or what have you. Now for the 12-inch piece, I found the middle and attached my largest flower, right? Then I counted over 12. So I counted 12 knots over, and honestly, I'm just counting the bumps, right? So I counted 12 over, added another jump ring and another dangle, and then another 12 jump ring and a dangle, another 12 jump ring and a dangle. And I did the same thing on the other side. So that helps to make all of it nice and even. You can make them closer together or further apart, but it definitely helps to count the knots to keep everything nice and even on either side, right? And then you take it, let's turn you guys around real quick. And I will attach this to this purse so you can see it again. Some of you didn't join until after we got started, and that's totally fine. I did show at the beginning what this looked like. So the purse that I have here is pretty small, but still give you a pretty good idea of what this is going to look like. So just going to clip that on. Again, bigger purses, you might need a longer one of these, a shorter purse, which this one probably could have used a shorter, but just so that you have an idea of what this is going to look like. And listen, this is what I call fast fashion, right? This is one of those trends that is only going to be around for a little while, and it will do like this, you know, it'll be in fashion for now for the rest of the year, and then it'll go out of fashion, and then it'll come back around again, and that's totally fine. But what's cool about this is that because of the way that this is put together, you can very easily turn it into a necklace. You could very easily like turn it into something else, wrap it around something else. Like, it doesn't have to be permanent. That's what's cool about the little lobster clasp. Clip it on there, toss it to the side when you're done with it, clip it to something else. It doesn't always have to be attached, right? Sometimes you're feeling a little whimsical and you want a little extra on your bag. Sometimes you don't. And you can very easily take this on and off or turn it into a necklace. So nothing permanent here, because I know a lot of us, like, our handbags are coveted, don't want to do anything to permanently mess with those. But right now this is trendy and it's easy to do and recreate on your own. You don't have to spend a ton of money to do it. So hopefully I have inspired you. If nothing else, hopefully I've shown you a new knot that you can incorporate into your jewelry making or your crafting, right? All right, my friends, thank you so much for hanging with me and let me be a part of your afternoon. I appreciate all of you. I look forward to seeing you again very soon with another fun class. Don't forget, in about 24 to 48 hours, you can rewatch this on replay. So you can get straight to the point. You can skip through all the stuff in the beginning and you can rewatch, rewind, fast forward, all those good things, right? All right, have a wonderful rest of your day, and I will see you very, very soon. Bye, guys.